would appeal to young conservatives? Because I think a lot of young conservatives would view themselves as one nation, or you know, a lot of them are YIMBYs now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing which is great about small state conservatism is that it isn't kind of within the conservative spectrum. It isn't left wing or right wing. It isn't sort of factional. Actually, most people, um, if they think about policy, reckon that a smaller state is a good thing in principle because it helps the economy and it helps wealth creation, um, and particularly because at the moment, given the fact that we have historically high tax rates and very high borrowings as well, a big government conservative solution is something which is just not on the cards for the moment. We've got to try and work out how you create a smaller state humanely. Now, there will then be legitimate differences, I think, between different flavors of conservative as to how you do it. That's fine. But we exist to try and put forward ideas about how you get from A to B, how you can produce this stuff. And actually, if you look at, for example, housing policy, you mentioned YIMBYs and that sort of stuff just now. Really important issue for well, anybody in the country, but certainly anybody under the age of about 35. Um, we've just put forward an idea that basically says we think that there's a gentle density build up, not out solution here, which is very much to do with a smaller state because it gets politicians out of the way of most planning decisions and still ends up with better looking, more beautiful, and faster built, safe but fast, and much more dynamic town and city centres. Now, that means that you have a smaller state enabling houses to be built at a much faster rate. They are much better looking. They are things that people want to live in a neighborhood where they walk past beauty rather than ugliness all the time. But just building more means that it reduces the supply and demand means that the price comes down and it becomes much more affordable. So that's a really good example about how small state conservatives overlap into we're kind of we include everybody in the conservative family, and then the question is, well, how can we deliver it? The difficulty is that almost everybody in the conservative family says, look, we like the idea of a smaller state in principle. The question is, how do you deliver it? How do you get there? And the difficulty is that if you look at somewhere like North America and Trump's and Elon Musk's attempts to do this Doge thing, it didn't produce anything like the savings that everybody was expecting when he started. So that doesn't work. Ditto, I'm very sorry to say, if you take the Liz Truss approach of sort of turning everything off and sort of seeing who complains, that didn't work very well either, did it? So our motto is in fact slightly different. It says bigger citizens need smaller governments. In other words, you can reduce the demand for government, the need for government, if you equip your citizens with the skills, the abilities to be able to stand on their own two feet, to live proudly independent lives, then it isn't a question of saying, well, I know you need help, but you're just not getting it because we're running a smaller state. That wouldn't be very caring. It wouldn't be very supportive. Instead, what we say is we can make it so that you don't need so much help from government, but only we can only do that if we equip you to be able to live an independent life in the first place. And that means an awful lot of care on everything from education on through. But bigger citizens need smaller governments is kind of our starting point, and I hope that's pretty unfactional. It doesn't matter if you are on the right hand end of the conservative spectrum or on the one nation end or anywhere in between. I think most people can sign up to that.
Do you think that's what Kemi agrees with, and do you think she's
Um,
producing policies along those
I,
ideas?
I think it'd be interesting to see. I mean, she's still in the early stages of rolling out policy ideas, as you know, um, and um, and she is very sensibly, I think, embarking on this big policy renewal program. One of the things that I do, I think I mentioned at the start, is I'm the chairman of the Conservative Policy Forum, the party's in-house think tank. So we are trying to make sure that we're the mechanism where members can contribute to the party's policy renewal process. Um, I think that uh, Kemi and the rest of her team will find it very easy to agree with an awful lot of small state conservative ideas, not least because there's no money. Because given what Rachel Reeves is doing to the economy, and given what she's done to taxes, and given what she's done to borrowing, I'm afraid that it looks very likely indeed that whenever we next have a Conservative government, as is, I'm afraid, traditional after a Labour government has been in power, they will have messed up the economy something rotten, and they will have messed up the public finances something rotten. And we are always the people who have to turn up with a mop on the bucket afterwards and clean up the mess they've left. This one doesn't look like it's going to be any different, I'm very sorry to say. But it will mean that therefore small state conservative ideas will have to be a big part of what we do, because there isn't going to be any money for anything else.